I'm going to bring on in order of where you are in the process, Dr. Chad Richards. How are you doing?
I'm so good. I'm officially Dr. Chad Richards as of like
You
a
are
week ago. So
officially, yes.
that's right.
You are here representing the MS4s, and as we do National Pre-Med Day, the timeline is basically, hey, you are graduated, you are a doctor, so let's rock and roll with it.
Yeah.
You are off to Arizona for
Correct.
Gen Surge.
That's right. Yes,
Super
very excited
exciting.
about that. Lots of cross-country moves now. So medical school finished up in Florida and on our way to Arizona.
Super exciting. Thanks for being here. Take some time.
Thank you for having me.
Next up, our M3, JP Scott. How are you doing, my friend?
Good. How are you? It's a busy day.
It is a very busy day. All I want to know is our good friend Adrian going to be watching?
Absolutely.
Okay,
she will be here.
That's really the only reason I wanted you, is to get Adrian to watch.
Me too. Me too. She's better than I am, but you all stuck with me.
Oh, that's okay. I'm excited to chat with you. Where are you at school again?
I go to Ross University, actually.
You go to Ross, the Ross in the Caribbean. Good. So get some Caribbean insight. That'll be exciting.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about who we can get rid of that ticker down at the bottom. We don't need that ticker anymore. Where is it? There it is. All gone. Let's talk to Joel. How are you doing, Joel? M2 at
M2.
Washington State, right?
Yes. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me here.
I'm excited to have you. Thanks for being here. And last but not least, our M1, Angela. How are you doing, Angela?
Hi, I'm so good. Thank you.
And Angela, your school is blanking me for the minute. Where are you at school?
I'm at Rush in Chicago.
That is correct. You got that right. I'm glad you remember. Well, I'm excited to have all of you here. This is one of my favorite panels from last year. Is really, what is it like to be a medical student? Because everyone watching right now, except for Adrian, wants to be a medical student, right? They want to be where you are, especially Chad, where you are with those letters after your name, which is super fancy. Right. Chad, you have probably, and I know a little bit of everyone's story, but I know your story very well. You have the most circuitous path to medicine, being a very non-traditional student, needing to do a post-bac, needing to do an SMP, being rejected from the Caribbean medical schools at one point, and going, screw you, I'm still going to get into school. And look at you now, you've matched into Gen Surge. So talk about that long process, obviously as a pre-med student, but when you hit medical school, how much of that pre-med process carried over into your success as a medical student, or was it just a completely new journey starting at zero?
I think that the SMP was really good insight into the medical school journey. And for someone like me, I needed to have that experience of the rigors of medical school before going into it, if that makes sense. My undergrad journey was one of these ones that was so long and dragged out, and so many failures, and having a family and lots of different things that I never really got to experience the intense undergrad experience that most people have when they do just 4 years back to back. And so I survived medical school. Obviously, I got into the program I wanted to, and everything worked out. But the stepwise approach that I had to take was honestly the best thing for me. If something had happened to where, let's say, I had gotten into St. George's or one of these Caribbean schools earlier on when I was applying to those, I would have been one of the people who failed out. I have no doubt in my mind. I wasn't ready for it at the time. And so it sort of put into perspective for me that, this frustrating process of being a pre-med, of qualifying with the classes that you take and showing your trends and things like that, they really do matter. And for me, I did well in medical school, did well in all of my classes, but it was because of all of that experience beforehand. So was medical school a huge slap in the face, the whole drinking from a fire hydrant? Yes, but I was really well prepared for it because of everything I had been through. And I think that people can be a gauge for themselves as to whether or not they're really prepared for it, and they'll be able to do well.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you for being here. We'll come back to you. JP, M3. What does the M3 year look like? Now, you're a Caribbean student, so you can add that Caribbean twist on there as well. What does that look like for you? Pause for technical difficulties. Bluetooth headphones died. Get there?
Let's try this. How's
Yay!
that?
Gotcha.
Sorry. Always have backups. So third year for us as Caribbean med students looks the exact same as anybody else. We rotate at different hospitals throughout the United States, which is actually a benefit. So if you are from Chicago, Florida, California, Maryland, DC, New York, there are tracks that you can go to at the different hospitals, but you're doing the exact same curriculum, core, everything else as any other U.S. medical student. You're intermixed with other students from those institutions that may also be at their hospital. And so you're treated the same. As far as the experience, M3 is finally fun. Med school with a little bit of fun. I guess
don't lie. It's no fun first year.
I was going to say relatively to what fun is in med school, because you actually get to see patients. You actually get to apply everything that you've learned in a book, realize that it looks nothing like what it does in the person, and that even when you've gone through and done well in your first 2 years, you still know absolutely nothing, and you're still learning every single day. But I think it's the patient interaction. I think that's the part, for at least for me, has made the experience why I say I do what I do and gives you that boost. Other students may feel a little bit different. Some people like the didactic years more so than others. But for me, it's been everything that I've wanted.
Yeah. Talk about any imposter syndrome that you may have. A lot of students, and Chad, I'll ask you this a little bit later. You start medical school, you have imposter syndrome. Like, I don't think I was supposed to be here. You start your third year and you're in the hospital, like, oh, I really am not supposed to be here. You start your internship, residency, like that's a whole different level. What was that like for you?
I think the benefit, kind of like Chad, though, or let's use your new title, Dr. Richards. Dr. Richards. I think being older, I think it gives me a little bit more perspective because I've had a lot of experiences outside of working in spaces that were brand new and just trying to figure out, okay, where do I fit? What do I do? I think for me being older, I'm fully embrace the fact that I don't know a particular situation or I don't know something. I say it. And I also have the personality that says, I will go look it up and I will come back. And so for me, it's not been so much imposter syndrome because I'm like, well, if I already knew everything, I would be graduated, I'd be an attending, and I'd be already making a lot of money. So this is what I'm here to feel. And if I don't like how I feel, like not knowing something, feeling kind of fishy, then I do the steps that need to, whether it's coming to the hospital early and pre-rounding before I'm supposed to pre-round, or if it's researching something in a bathroom break real quick. I'm not taking a selfie in the bathroom. I'm like, let me Google that real quick on UpToDate so I can come out of here. But yeah, I think you just lean into and embrace the unknown, and it kind of helps with that.
Yeah. Joel, let's move to you. So Joel, you're a second year. Second year, you've gone through first year. You've kind of hopefully understood and now accept the pace of medical school. What is second year like? It's just more of the same, or is there any more excitement going on after first year? What's going on?
It's always exciting over here. I feel like second year is just one of those years where you're still trying to figure it out because it depends on where you're at, but some schools, they do kind of the basic sciences the first year. Second year, they go into what's called organ systems, and that's kind of how our school works. So we're looking at things like cardiology, renal, pulmonology, and really understanding how do those systems work together so that when you're in the hospitals in the third year, that you can actually be seeing patients and understanding how these things all connect together. I love it this year because I feel like it's really the time where you feel like you're a doctor. First year, sometimes it can feel like a little bit of the repetition of the pre-med courses with the biochems and things like that. Second year, for me at least, has been really where I feel like I'm actually practicing what I need to know as a physician in the future. It also is kind of the time where you're diving into other things that you really care about beyond just the medical school process. First year, a lot of people take the time, they try and get settled in, they try and understand it. Second year, you've kind of gotten the lay of the land, you understand how your school works. If you've moved to a new area, you have more of an understanding of where you are. And now you can dive into the extracurriculars, figure out how do you actually supplement not just being a medical student, but being a physician that's going to be a part of the world and understanding how you want to leave your mark.
Nice. Love it. Angela, the baby of the group in terms of where you are in the process. What was that transition like for you from pre-med to medical student and getting through your first year?
Honestly, we've gone through so many different processes throughout this past year. You know, we started somewhat mostly virtual, then it was hybrid, and now we're mostly in person. So it's been a whirlwind, and I feel like I'm still adjusting, even though, you know, we're on our last block. I'm almost done with M1 year, which is just absolutely crazy. I took one gap year. It was a planned gap year, so I didn't have too big of a gap between undergrad and med school, but still, you know, I feel like no matter what you do, whether you come in straight through or you take gap years or whatever your path is, your growth years, you're still going to have to adjust to the rigors of medical school no matter what. The first few months, you're just figuring everything out, so it was very difficult, but it does help knowing that medical schools are pass-fail, most of them, so then you can be easy on yourself and still devote your time to things that actually matter to you most, like extracurriculars, like Joel was saying, things that bring you joy, because it does get very difficult to just study, you know, 10 hours, 12 hours sometimes each day if you don't have that thing fueling your purpose. So yeah, that's what I would say.
What was the biggest adjustment that you had to make as a first year medical student in terms of study habits or personal care routines, stuff like that?
I would say accepting the fact that you're never going to get through your to-do list, no matter how productive you are in your day. And you need to be a person first, because you can't possibly become a good physician if you don't take care of yourself first. So finding that balance and integrating that from day one, you're never going to have the time. So for me also, it was very difficult because I'm surrounded by such intelligent people. Also, while, you know, the curriculum is pass-fail. So you take that and you're like, okay, I only have to pass, but everyone around you is so intelligent and that's pushing you to do even more. So just finding that like transition, something that's healthy for you, and you're not being too hard on yourself, because the first few months, I mean, those were very, very challenging in their own way, but that's just transitioning to a new chapter of life. So, but you'll figure it out, I promise.
You'll figure it out. Just got to do it. Joel, M2 year is synonymous with boards. You have step one for the allopathic students, and level one and step one potentially for the osteopathic students. At your school, a lot of schools will have dedicated study blocks. How much of your second year did you dedicate to step one prep versus passing the tests in medical school?
Yeah, that's a great question. My answer is going to be a little bit different than actually most students. Our school is doing kind of a new model where we actually take our step one in third year. So I'll be taking it in December. So that's actually something I'm trying to kind of think about in the future too, for when I'm in the hospitals, actually rotating around, and also having to figure out how am I going to be studying for step one when it's coming up, when I also have to be thinking about my patients that I'm going to be seeing. But even this year, I think a lot of our students have been thinking about studying even now. So it was constantly the struggle between wanting to do well on the test and wanting to pass. And as Angela mentioned, it's a lot of schools are pass fail, mine included, but then also wanting to make sure that you're studying for these boards, that you do your best on step one and step two in the futures. And many students might have heard that step one is going to be going pass fail in the future too. And I think that's going to take a lot of burden off of some students to not feel like they have to study too much. Angela, that's going to be you. For me,
you.
Yeah, I'm right on the cusp there. So I'm actually maybe getting a score for it. So for me, it's been trying to balance how do I make sure I'm studying every single day, just a little bit, especially since I know when third year kicks off, it's going to be a whirlwind of wanting to make sure I'm doing the best for my patients and the people that I'm going to be seeing in the hospitals, but also wanting to get those scores because they often can determine what you can go into in the future.
That's interesting. I would love to dive into the rationale at some point with the school about why they decided to like get rid of dedicated study time, because that's really like the marketing effort of the school is like, look at our step 1 score. But again, with it going pass fail, there's going to be less stress around step 1 and more stress around step 2.
Definitely. And I should say we still do get some dedicated time. So we'll have 4 weeks in December before when we take it. But it's still the kind of the balance of wanting to make sure that you're doing the boards, you're getting the scores, the physicians are seeing that you pay attention to your patients, you're getting the marks that you need, then also studying at the same time.
Yeah. Awesome. JP, one of the biggest kind of misconceptions potentially, or myths, not myth, but a misconception or unknown about medical school is that once you enter third year, right, all the studying is done. You just got to take care of patients and be a rock star on the wards, right? That's all that matters.
Nice.
But it's not. Talk about how you are balancing seeing patients and studying for all the shelf exams and everything else that you have to do as a third year.
I like to tell people that I think no part of medical school gets easier as you go along. You just get really better at figuring out, okay, how do I do this and how do I manage it? Like, that's really what it is. You're a better manager of the new challenges that come up. And so a lot of that comes to, like I tell people, it's just really dedicating your time and strategizing. And when I say that, I mean, sometimes, and it's unpopular to say this, and you become that person in your life that it's like, I have to plan out dedicated study time. If I'm at a block, and some rotations may give you a little bit more leeway than others, and recognize, oh, okay, they need to study a little bit more, they're doing this, and they give you that leniency. Others are like, I don't care, you're here, you're going to stay here, and you're going to have to figure it out. So I always tell people I have my master list, and then I have my weekly list, and then I have my 3 days. And it's like, okay, what do I need to get done in these chunks? And I just try to break it down into that, because otherwise I'll get very overwhelmed. And then obviously this pandemic threw things quite all over the place with us. So we even had moments where our step exams, for example, like my step exam was right and the start of the pandemic was. So my board exam was canceled because of the pandemic. Then they wanted us to do online, and then we had to go do a rotation and then come back and do some dedicated. You learn to be the best chameleon and adjuster to just say, okay, what we got, and figure it out. So that's what my best answer is.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I had something profound to say, but I lost it. So that's okay. Because that's really all you're doing is just adjusting to the moment. How much I figured out what I was going to say. How much of your time in medical school is accepting that you're not going to know it all?
Oh, most of it. Most of it, because I think the thing is, like I said, we're continuous learners. Like, that is what our job is. Our job is in a profession that tomorrow somebody's going to come up with something that's new or researching. And my mother's a physician, for example, and she's an internist and she's still practicing. And sometimes I say to her, I said, well, Ma, you didn't have to even worry about that because they didn't even invent it when you were in school, dear. Like, you didn't have some of these things. So you are forever learning, which means you have to come from a place of curiosity. I think that always helps because you're not always going to love everything. Like, I don't know anybody that really loves biochem. And even when you're doing certain rotations, you're not going to love every rotation. Like, I know I don't want to be an OBGYN, but there is something about each specialty and each part that you can extrapolate something that is interesting, that can benefit somebody else or some other way. And so that's something that you kind of have to just kind of figure out for yourself, like, what is my why for being here every single day? And doing that kind of shapes how you go about interacting, how you go about learning, because it's not fun. Like, nobody's sitting here saying, I love studying all day. Like, I don't have a personal life. I'm single and racking up hundreds of $1,000s of debt. Like, nobody's saying that, okay? So it has to be about bigger than the money, and it has to be about the curiosity and the love. And for somebody that was asking, what's the sign behind me? It says, I fell 7 times, I got up 8. So that's what I have in my office, just as a reminder. Sorry, I'm seeing it.
I love
in
it.
Questions.
Yeah, good job. Dr. Chad Richards, 4th year of medical school. You get through the craziness of the first 2 years. You get through the fun of 3rd year, which is still crazy, but you get to see patients. 4th year historically is known as the kind of the slack off year because you're applying for residency, you're kind of doing some elective rotations, which ideally are hopefully a little bit more fun because you're more passionate about those electives that you're doing. What was 4th year like for you?
4th year for me was, the first half was unbelievably stressful because I went into a specialty that required audition rotations or sub internships. And with the COVID pandemic and everything, a lot of auditions were canceled. But I booked mine before the pandemic really kicked in. And so I was able to go on all of my auditions, and I ended up doing 8. And so I was bouncing around to different hospitals, basically getting up at 3:30 a.m. every single day to come in pre-round and be ready to be pimped all day and stuff, and just constantly having to be on my A game for the first half, which made a big difference for me. But, you know, you're juggling interviews during that time and things like that. So it was incredibly stressful, but it was nice to be done with boards. I didn't have step 2 to think about. I didn't have any other exams really to think about. Even shelf exams for M3, like I was done with all of that. But the uncertainty of residency, once you're several $100,000s in debt and you're, you know, waiting for interviews to come and stuff, it's a unique kind of stress. But once you've matched, this second half of M4 is the true, for me, I've just been chilling at home with my family. You know, I've done a couple of rotations and stuff, and I've, you know, met all my requirements and graduated and everything. But, you know, you really do get to check out mentally for a few months, I guess, after you've matched. So, yeah. M4 is definitely the year to look forward to. I will say it's been really nice.
They give you the calm before the storm, before residency hits. I'll open this up to all of you because there's a stereotype of attending physicians, especially surgeons, that just aren't very nice. What has your experience been around attendings, and how have you handled if you experienced not nice attendings?
I think I can answer this question just because like I said, I did a 8 audition rotation, so I had a lot of experience. And general surgery is a moderately competitive field and a high stress field. So you're around surgeons that are stressed out, residents that are stressed out, and sometimes they're grumpy and sometimes they say hurtful things, and you know that they don't really mean it, and you know, things like that. I would say in most cases, even the attendings or residents who come off as the mean people that you wouldn't want to be around, there's usually something really good to learn from them. And sometimes really they are just teaching. They just happen to teach in a kind of somewhat abrasive way, but there's actually a lot to learn from them. And so I think of some of the attendings that I interacted with that, you know, would just make me feel like dirt at the end of the day. But I realized coming out of it that I actually learned the most from them. So I think that for the most part, though, being someone had specifically asked about seniors and things like that, for the most part, they're very respectful. For me, in my situation, if any of these pre-meds watching are older, I'm 37. So, you know, mid-30s, I have 4 kids, kind of just like this older dad kind of figure going for something like surgery. You often wonder, what am I going to be treated like and things like that. And honestly, if anything, people were more respectful because of it, because
Yeah.
they see that you've kind of got this life behind you. So I wouldn't worry too much about it if I were you.
Nice. JP, you got something to add to that?
Yeah, I would agree. I think you're going to always be faced with different personalities. That's medicine. So I think that shouldn't be so much of a concern. It's kind of how do you handle it? I agree with Dr. Richards. I've had people that are a little bit tougher, but I think because since we're talking about ages, I'm 33. So I think because of being also a little bit older, you know how to advocate for yourself. So it's not necessarily saying something in a moment. Sometimes it's just pulling somebody aside and saying, hi, I know maybe this is your way of teaching, or I know that there's something going on, but I really didn't like the way that you spoke to me that way. Because sometimes some people are fairly receptive if you know the person. Don't complain a lot, but if somebody really does overstep a boundary, I don't feel like it's one of those things where you can't always talk to somebody. Like those people who are tough attendings, everybody's kind of told you that. So you're also in contact with the residents, the other students, and so people have already talked. So, but yeah, you just deal with different personalities, and you just kind of learn to roll things off your back. Like some people just have bad days. Some people just that's their personality. And, you know, again, focus on, like Dr. Richard said, what you're there to learn from them. Not always the best teachers or the nicest teachers. That's okay. And I don't need you to be, but get what you need out of them. And then, okay, sometimes you just never have to see them again.
Yeah. Chad, are you still used to hearing Dr. Richards yet, or no?
Not even in the slightest. I have a brother who's a physician, and they call him Dr. Todd. So I'm not even used to hearing the term Dr. Richard. So I make my kids call me Dr. Dad. So that's still sticking in the house for now. I'm sure that trend will wear off quick though.
I love it. Angela, let's go to you for a minute, and let's talk about a day in the life. What does first year medical school look like? And for you, obviously a little bit different because of COVID, but in general, what was the day like for you?
So I really love this question, and just a little plug, I do post like daily highlights every single day of what my schedule looks like, because it's so hard to really summarize what a typical day looks like when all of them are so different. But I like waking up early. So I noticed I like mornings, and the biggest thing is figuring out when you are most productive, when you feel the best. If you like to stay up later, that's totally fine. But I just found that I study better and just more productive and feel better if I wake up earlier. So that's how I start my day. We are hybrid, mostly in person as well. So we have classes on campus. Some days we have no classes at all. Some days we have like 4 to 6 hours. It all depends. But a typical day, let's say just like an average day, I'll wake up in the morning. Let's say classes at 10 a.m. or something. I'll study before class. We have a daily schedule of what we need to be studying each day. So that helps me really stay on top of it, be organized. I'm not feeling like confused or drowning in all the material. So then I attend class, make time for a workout sometimes. It's been difficult, but I do live with 2 girls who are in my class. So we also always make time to unwind at the end of the day. But the day-to-day is so different. And I do post those every day in case you guys are curious. You can always take a look. But on average, we would have like 2 to 6 hours of class every single day. And after that, it's all up to you how you want to spend it. You can either study, you can take the day off. It's all up to you.
Nice. Do you find that you study, or do you take time off? What do you do more of?
I study enough to not be absolutely behind, but I definitely, as I progress throughout M1, I've noticed I really do take the time to like relax and do things that bring me so much joy, because at the end of the day, it is pass fail, and there's time now to not stress about grades or scores. And so I want to take advantage of all of that.
Nice. Very nice. Joel, M2 is very similar to M1, just in terms of volume of material, just different. And then obviously preparing for STEP, depending on what school you're in. Talk about the friendship circle and the study groups and accountability partners you've potentially formed at your school. What was that like?
I absolutely love that question because I feel like it's not talked about enough, but I think it's the most important part of medical school, the people that you're there with, because they're the ones that are going to keep you there, keep you honest, keep you actually getting through everything. So I live with actually 4 other med students. So it's a full house of us. We have a whole house and we do study groups together, but also on our own. So we'll actually like study on our own, kind of do videos. I'm sure a lot of students have heard about Anki. I feel like that's a new thing where you just like kind of flip through flashcards and that's your daily studying now, or watching videos on like Boards and Beyond, Sketchy Medical, all these different websites that are now the go-tos for students to understand. But I'll come back together with my roommates when it gets closer to the study time, when we need to really dive in, and we'll quiz each other, which I absolutely love. We call it like pimping each other out on questions, and it's kind of what you'll get to when you go to like your 3rd and 4th year, so it's perfect. And I feel like in my house we make a game out of it where we'll even like keep a score chart and things like that. But I think everyone has their different ways of studying with other people and alone. I really need a mix of both studying outside of my house, inside of my house, with other people, alone, and it just really keeps me on my toes, because in medicine you're never going to know when the questions come at you. My family already is asking me questions. I'm like, not a doctor yet. I'm 50%, so you can get 50% of an answer right now. But you just
At
never
least
know
they
when
wait
those.
until you're in medical school, not as a pre-med. They're like, you're gonna be a doctor someday. Just help me now.
Oh, it started early. It started early, but at that point, I was just like, I'm going to deflect that one. But I think it just really helps having people around you that know what you're going through, and that can really be alongside you when you're studying.
Yeah, that's awesome. JP, let's talk a little Caribbean specific. Caribbean schools are known, rightly or wrongly, for higher attrition rate. As you're going through medical school, what is that like for your psyche, potentially seeing classmates dropping like flies?
I think there's a lot of myth, and this is the thing I think that people have to understand about medical education in general. It's nothing if not a factory of comparison, which I think people have to get out of. If you're looking at in fears of Caribbean medical school, it's like, look at the doctors that you went to as a child that you'll be rotating with. How many of them have an accent or came from a different country, which means they were educated someplace else. So a lot of that is myth and fodder that people just need to leave. Yes, there is quite a big attrition rate, or loss of students as you go through the years of, a Caribbean medical school. You may start with 400 students, but like Dr. Richard said, not everybody is able to cope with and handle the rigor of medical school. And it is a lot less hand-holding, but it's a lot less hand-holding. It's a lot less, or more, I should say, resourceful, in terms of you having to be resourceful, finding people that you can study with, resources. We are a very tight community. That's the one thing I will say. Unlike where you have a lot of this gunner mentality in US schools, you don't have time for that because you're just trying to survive the island, honey. So people are handing out terabytes of, bring your hard drive. I'm going to give you Pathoma. I'm going to give you Sketchy. I'm going to give you question banks. I'm going to give you this. I didn't pay for a lot of that stuff until I was 3rd year because of the amount of pass down, which I don't know if we're allowed to say that or not, but it's true.
Disclaimer, Dr. Gray does not condone piracy.
That's fine. But you're broke med student, you better find your way, okay? All right. Choose hunger. Take the pirate. But things like that. So I think it can be one thing for the psyche, but you can also look at the people who are really serious, like you. So like my friends, I don't really know too many of it's like, well, how many didn't pass and how many didn't go through? Because we were always the ones that were, this is not a party, this is a job. We're here to do what we need to do and keep moving forward. And so I think people have, again, this myth that Caribbean med school, there is no Wi-Fi on the beach. So those who are really studying are in the library, in your study rooms, studying. And so it really honestly is what you kind of know is going to happen, but it really doesn't have any bearing if this is really what you want to do, because you'll focus and get it done.
Yeah. Love it. In these final few minutes, let's open it up. Chad, what's your number one tip to surviving medical school? Notice how I didn't say
surviving medical school.
Thriving in medical school. You survive medical school. It's like surviving the pandemic. I ain't thriving. I don't know about you, but how do you survive medical school? Yeah.
I think if I had a number one tip, I would say, need to push yourself like you want to go for that big specialty that you know is super competitive and really difficult to get into and stuff, which is kind of a different take from what some of the other people were saying here. But I just say that, like, you know, things like doing research and you know, getting publications or getting good board scores, which I know isn't necessarily the case, but step 2 is still going to be a huge factor for people who want to go into surgical specialties and things like that. Like, those scores make a really big difference. And honestly, like, on my rotations, I met residents who couldn't pass their ABSITE exams, you know, and that's like the surgical boards that you have to take every year. And it's a real concern for residency programs. So my point is that, like, you know, you push yourself as if you are going after that really tough, whatever it is that you're shooting for, and you'll be more likely to survive, you know. My friends who didn't take it seriously were the ones who failed out. And I had some very close friends where I felt like I was trying to drag them along, like, come on, man, let's go study. And they were just like, no, it's okay, it's not a big deal and stuff. And those are the ones that didn't survive, that didn't graduate. And so I just would say, you know, dream big and really go after it as hard as you can, because that's going to put you in a good spot no matter where you do end up, whether it's actually in that particular thing you're dreaming of or not.
Yeah. Joel, what about you?
Yeah, I'll say 2 things. I think the first is when you get to the selection process, choose a school that you know is going to support you. I think I've heard from a lot of people that if they had a choice, they maybe chose one that they thought would be the best for them, just given prestige or something like that, but it ended up not being a place for them because they didn't have the support systems that they needed. And that's where it really starts from, having those support systems. And connected to that, the second thing is really finding ways that you can rejuvenate yourself and replenish yourself when you are lost. Medical school is hard, as we've all said. We're studying all the time. We're doing all these kind of things. But you need to find what are your ways, what are your outlets to actually make yourself feel better when you're having a bad day. For me, it's hanging out with my friends sometimes, or it's running outside, or it's finding a quiet hike where I can just go and relax. And those things help me be a better person, just because I know when I come back to the books or I come back to the small groups that I'm in, I'm gonna be at my A game. I'm gonna be helping out. I'm gonna be talking to people. But also when it comes down the line to actually applying to residencies, everyone's going to have those stories of being a student, but the things that they're going to really want to know is what made you unique, right? What did you do during your downtime? Everyone's going to have that, some downtime, but what were you doing to help yourself out, to help others out? So really figuring out what that is for you, finding that why, and making sure you understand that before you go into medicine, because burnout is real. With physicians, it's only growing as things get more complicated. So as long as you know yourself, you can make sure that you take care of yourself and those around you.
Angela?
3 things, really brief things. So number 1, if you are a pre-med, I highly recommend, if it's possible at all, to get involved at your dream program, dream hospital, dream community. I say that because it makes such a difference. I'm currently at my dream MD program only because I really do think that I proved in my application that I'm dedicated to them and only them, and I think that really helped in the long run. So if you're in the area, if you're dreaming to attend a school that's in your state, nearby, even for a summer, get involved. It will make a difference. Make those connections. They'll recognize your name. I promise it's so worth it. My number 2 tip is take advantage of social media and connect with current students at the school, at the programs. Get a feel for the program, get to know them, meet with them, anything it takes. It really helps, and I think that's what I would have done as a pre-med as well. And number 3, just remember that you will get there if you work hard, just like Dr. Richards was saying, just like Joel was saying. I promise, if you just work super hard, you're gonna get to where you want to be. And embrace the current moment, because I know you hear this all the time, but really think about it. You will not get these moments back. You won't relive them again. And I look back at my pre-med journey like, wow, I really grew as a person. I'm continuing to grow. And even as an M1, I'm always like, I can't wait till clinical rotations. I can't wait until residency, but I'll never relive my M1 year again. And that's a year that was my dream at one point as a pre-med, you know? So just always keep that mentality, because you won't find happiness in the end goal and the destination. It's only going to be about the journey. So just really think about that. I think about it every single day, and it really is a game changer.
Love it. That's great. So many memories from medical school and even as a pre-med. Just I never tried to look at the end goal as the finish line, and just every day just cherishing those successes and celebrating all of that. JP, finish us off here with your number one tip for a student.
I think my number one tip focus more, I think, on the support and mental health of the person. I think the thing that you need to learn about med school is everything gets compounded on top of each other, meaning that you need to make sure that you're kind of mentally at your best, or what, and when I say at your best, meaning you have coping mechanisms and skills, because it's not a matter of if you will break in this process, it's a matter of when. There will be many tears. Like, the season of tears is coming. And it's just a matter of where yours is going to be, but it is like Game of Thrones. Winter is coming. So I think you need to keep that in mind, that everybody is struggling. Every single person, as much as it's like you can keep your head down and you can focus, honey, sometimes that is not going to do you any doggone good. And what it really comes down to is your grit and your willingness to keep fighting through something when you've gotten knocked down. And that's the thing that I think for a lot of students, if they've gotten into their dream, like, again, it's great to hear that people get into their dream schools or things are working out. You will be faced with a time when that doesn't happen. And the thing that I see a lot from a lot of students, why they cannot succeed and get past it, is because they've never failed before and they've never figured out how to get past failure. And that comes with the mental game of education and this process, which is medicine. So I think you need to make sure that you have a great support system. You're always reevaluating your why on a daily basis sometimes, because let's be honest, some days you're sitting there like, why the hell did I choose this? Why am I doing this? And if you're not asking yourself that and just enjoying this process, you're a sadist. I don't understand. So good for you. But I think you can work really, really hard. But the other thing is to understand what's important to you. For some people, it is reaching a particular profession, like they have to be an orthopedic surgeon and have that title. Again, good for you. But nobody succeeds at everything. So if you're doing that work there to get the highest score and to be that person, where are you failing somewhere else? Because you're definitely taking a hit someplace, and be comfortable where that is. So again, focus on yourself, focus on your why, but make sure you're really developing those mental strategies, have those support systems ready to go, because life will be only compounded as you go through. This process gets harder as you go through. And look, it's not fun all the time.
Angela, Joel, JP, Dr. Richards, thank you so much for joining me here in our second annual National Pre-Med Day, sharing your wisdom, your thoughts, and your expertise. Dr. Richards, good luck in your residency. I wish you nothing but the best. And for the rest of you, Godspeed during your clinicals and didactics and all of that fun stuff.